Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsyreplays. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to have a look at the IS-4. Yes, one of the go-to, or the previous go-to tanks, and one of the tanks that I used to strongly recommend people grinding, especially if you were a new player. I would always recommend people grinding, new players grinding the IS-4 first, as their first tier 10, because it used to be one of the tanks that you could make a few mistakes, you know, and it didn't matter too much. It made you learn the game, you know, it made you do damage, it made you have to everything about the tank, you know. You could side scrape, you could go hold down, you could bully tanks, you know. Everything about the tank was one of those tanks where you could learn just about everything from this tank. But over the last few months, it doesn't quite feel like the same tank it once was. I mean, the armor profile doesn't seem as it once was, and it's one of those tanks now. I don't know why. I don't know what's really changed too much from the tank, whether people just know how to deal with it now. Maybe it's because people are just using premium rounds more, where you can just switch to premium round and you can go through this tank like butter. So the hit points 2650, not too bad. The turret is 238, not a bad turret. However, this day and age, yeah, you can pen it quite easily in the right tank, and your hull is only 160 millimeters. There is a lot of weak points on your hull. You know, the bottom plate is quite weak. If people switch to premium round, they can just pen the upper plate very, very easily. And I think that is the biggest problem now with the IS-4. People just know how to deal with the tank. So the DPM 2637. Reload time 9.56, the penetration 258 on your AP and 340 on your heat. And then you've got, it has a 420 alpha gun, and you've got 360 on your heat and 500 on your HE. Aim time obviously not good at 4.6, and the dispersion not bad, well, not great at 0.344, and it only has 6 degrees of gun depression, and speed 38 kilometers per hour. So yeah, that is the biggest problem now with this tank. That it is just, there is other tanks out there that are better than that, can do the same job, but that the IS-4 can do, but they can do it better. And people now just know how to deal with the IS-4. So all those years that I've been recommending people to drive the IS-4 as your first line, your starter line, I have to now retract that, and I don't think that this is now the perfect tank to start off your Blitz career. So in the right hands, the IS-4 can still be a good tank. Of course, any tank in the right hands can still be a good tank. You can still bounce shots, you can still do the damage, but I'm solely talking about new players. You know, new players have to have a line to grind, of course, and if they've got no experience whatsoever with Blitz or even what PC or anything like that, if they're just coming into the game as a brand new player, you wouldn't go and drive something like a TVP. You wouldn't go and drive something like a Leopard 1, or maybe even something like a 50B, because these are all tanks that require at least some skill to play, and the IS-4 was one of those that didn't require that skill. Even things like the mouse, the E100, like, they've got good armor profiles. If you talk about the mouse, it's used to be known as one of the most heavily armored tanks. Of course, there is a lot of weak points, and if you don't know how to play the tank, then you're going to get ripped apart, even in a mouse. So the IS-4 has always been one of those tanks, just the go-to tank for a new player. It was always between the IS-4 and an IS-7, but back in the day, the IS-7, I think, was overrated. You know, again, it takes a good player to play the IS-7 because of the pike nose. If you start angling, the pike nose becomes a lot weaker. If you're looking straight directly at the tank, your pike nose is quite strong. However, the lower plate is very, very weak. So I didn't ever recommend the IS-7 as a first tank for new players, because people would just make too many mistakes whilst driving the IS-7. So it was always the IS-4, because you couldn't really angle in an IS-7 because your pike nose becomes weak. Again, it has that lower plate. It had armor. It had a lot of armor, or the IS-4 had a lot of armor, and still has, to be honest, when you're driving it in the right way. But yeah, I mean, you can side scrape in this thing. You couldn't really side scrape in a IS-7. However, this was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. One of the best tanks in tier 10 to side scrape when you are side scraping correctly. And don't forget, you've got to do it correctly. So I'm not saying that the IS-4 is a bad tank by all means. I don't mind it. I think it's okay. It isn't one of my go-to tanks in tier 10 when it comes to heavies. Nowadays, a lot of people do prefer the IS-7, which is, yeah, it's good to see the IS-7 has come back. When I first joined the game, it was literally the 140 medium, and it was the IS-7. Those were the two tier 10s that everybody was playing. Just look back at the tournaments that Wargaming was streaming. Everything was either an IS-7 or an Object 140. So it kind of stopped. With the IS-7, it kind of stopped. And the IS-4 was one of those tanks that everybody plays in tournaments rather than the IS-7, because you could just do a lot more with it. So yeah, it is a bit shit, really, to see the IS-4 now compared to how it was back in the day. And like I said, it hasn't really been nerfed. It hasn't really been nerfed too much. And it really sort of hasn't even been buffed. It's just people now know how to deal with it a lot more. If people don't know how to use premium rounds, then of course the IS-4 is still a fantastic tank. But nowadays there is just so many other tanks that are just better than this in almost every way. Again, you've got the Kranwagen, you can go hold down, it's got an auto-loader, and other tanks like the Type 71 can do everything that an IS-4 can do, but even better. It has the speed, it has the turret, you can side scrape, you could do everything. So what is the point in playing the IS-4 now? The IS-7 is much more fun after it got the HD, the graphics, the extra graphics, the better graphics, the remodeled. The IS-7 now is one of the go-to tanks. It's a fun tank to play. I don't have fun when I'm playing the IS-4. Honestly, I don't have fun. If you hold down, yeah, you can get some bounces. Of course you can get some bounces. Any tank really in a hold down position, if you're lucky, you can get some bounces. But nowadays, I honestly just don't know why anybody would want to play the IS-4. And it is a tank, as I've said, it is a tank that I would not recommend now a new player to grind. If you look at that Type 71, I mean, look at that. It's just troll. It is so troll. Why would I recommend an IS-4 for a new player when you can just go and grind the Type 71, which, as I've said, it is better in every single way. And with the equipment that you can run on the Type 71, you could either use it with the gun depression, and you can learn how to go hold down using your gun depression, or you can use it with the mobility and learn to get that mobility. And if you're learning to get the mobility and side scraping, wiggling, then you're also going to maybe learn some of the tier 10 medium tanks, like the heavy ones, like the E50M. So yeah, you could just do a lot more now with the Type 71 and the IS-7. And again, there's other tanks, the FV215B, I suppose, is coming into it again after it got buffed. There is just no reason. You need to give me a reason now why I would want to play the IS-4 when there is just so many other tanks out there. So that's about it. That is about it. It is a shame because for years I was always recommending the IS-4. Always, any new player would come to me saying, what line would you recommend me grinding? Straight away, without even thinking about it. I wouldn't even ask them, are you a medium kind of player or are you a heavy kind of player? Straight away, I would be, go grind the IS-4. go grind the IS-4 because it will allow you to make some mistakes and get away with it. However, some other heavies out there, you can't make a mistake. You can't get away with it. Medium tanks, light tanks, tank destroyers, you can't get away with some mistakes. However, the IS-4, you could. Now, what is there to play this tank? Why would I want to play this tank? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. I'm Meadsy, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye-bye.